Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shalom. Good evening, everyone. Your Excellencies, Ambassador Emir Hayek, Ambassador of the State of Israel, Your Excellencies, Consul General of the United Kingdom, Your Excellency, the Consul General of the United States, our dearest guests, dearest partners and associates, and our lovely students. And if I may, above all, I would like to greet our honorable guest, Yves Kugler, for taking all of the efforts and just come being with us here. Thank you very much. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for a long time now, as well as those who are new to the Crossroads of Civilizations Museum. Before we get started, as I said earlier, I would like to sincerely express my appreciation to all of you who generously, to all of you and your generosity for helping us making this event come together to become a success. There is special thanks and gratitude to the leadership of the United Arab Emirates to provide such culture of embracing, openness, and for paving the way, the best way to bring both nations back together, to reunite them to make Middle East great again. Honorable Yves, there is special thanks for you for making great efforts really, to come and be with us and share your stories and also to talk to the children here and also to all of us. Also would like to thank the Nationalist Foundation, the family, and my brother Ethan for their noble cause and for sincere efforts to stop racism, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism. Thanks also to the International March of the Livings for selecting the Crossroads of Civilization Museum in Dubai, UAE, to be the host for commemoration of the victims of the Kristallnacht. Thank you very much for all of you. Today, we commemorate the 84th year of the tragic night that called the Kristallnacht. And we are proud to be able to host it today here with all of you. Today in the Middle East, in the Islamic and the heart of the Arab world, we commemorate the victims of the Kristallnacht. And for the sake of humanity, and for the sake of assuring such crime never gets repeated, we are reviving a few memories, shedding light on factual, horrifying events and crimes, and with a survival and an expert to help us understand what happened, how it happened, and why the world was silent for years. Then the speeches and the talks help hoping that to stimulate our thoughts collectively to assure it never happens again, to stop such sparks of the crimes. It's important to remember that the Kristallnacht was the first and only large-scale pogrom in the Nazi Germany. Kristallnacht really changed the atmosphere and understanding of that time. The events of the Kristallnacht represented one of the most important turning points in the National Socialist anti-Semitic policy. Historians have noted that after the pogrom, anti-Jewish policy was concentrated more and more concentrated into the hands of the SS. So moreover, the passivity with which most German civilians responded to the violence signaled to the Nazi regime that German public was prepared for more radical measures. From November 9th to 10th, 1938, in an incident known as Kristallnacht, Nazis in Germany torched synagogues, vandalized Jewish homes, schools, and businesses, and murdered close to 100 Jews. In the aftermath of the Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass, some 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to Nazi concentration camps. German Jews had been subjected to repressive policies since 1933. When Nazi party leader Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, however, prior to the Kristallnacht, these Nazi policies had been primarily non-violent. After the Kristallnacht, conditions for German Jews grow increasingly worse. The term Kristallnacht served to foster a vicious minimalizing of its memory, a discounting of grave reality. Such cynical appellations functions to reinterpret manslaughter and murder, arson, robbery, plunder, and massive property damages, transforming these into a glistening event marked by sparkle and gleam. Of course, such terms reveal one thing: in stark clarity. The lack of any sense of involvement or feeling of sympathy on the part of those who had stuck their heads in the sand before that violent night. The violence that took place on Kristallnacht did not happen by chance. It broke out after people's minds had been primed for many years. The time had come to which the delusion that Jews were the cause of all society's ill had been planted in the minds of enough people. Today, you can see something similar happening once again around the world, and especially in Europe. The mechanism is identical. Racist prejudice about certain groups are brought into circulation, preferably about groups which are recognizable by their appearance one way or another. Many of the prejudice about Muslims, about black people, are suspiciously like what was said about the Jews. In particular, allegations which put the fear into people that they have a scary religion, are unreliable and dangerous, want to take our jobs, are criminals and want to take over the world. Anti-Semitism, racism and xenophobia, and other types of intolerance and discrimination, including against Muslims and Christians, not only threatens the security of the individuals and communities that suffer their effects, but can also contribute to creating the toxic climate necessary for extremism, terrorism, and crimes to flourish. So, confronting intolerance and discrimination by encouraging dialogue, mutual respect and understanding should be one of the absolute priorities of international community in its efforts to ensure peace and stability on the local and regional level. Anti-Semitism is not the problem of Jewish societies alone, nor it requires the existence of a Jewish society to spread. They exist in religious, social, and political forms and manifestation on all sides of the spectrum, political spectrum. And anti-Semitism, which is a symptom of broader social and political issues, it is an expression of the reactionary and dangerous tendencies that deeply affect the heart of societies. We know that anti-Semitism is still present in the world, and there are still those who oppress others for their race, creed, or color, and their simple desire for self-determination and a better life. We know where such racism and prejudice can lead. Let us ever recall that remedy exists. It is our profound beliefs in our readiness to defend the immortal declaration that all men are created equally, that they are endowed by their creators with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we hold fast to these truths, we will find the inspiration and the power to prevent inhumanity on the face of the earth. As with all forms of discrimination and intolerance, anti-Semitism must be countered through education within the framework of human rights and global citizenship. This is an immediate security imperative and a long-term educational commitment. And that way, there will never be another Kristallnacht. I would like to conclude with a poem written by an 8-year-old child from Erdington Academy. Her name is Emily Dixon de Corsi. The poem's title is One Day. One day they become the victims. One day they will be free. One day they won't be afraid. One day that is what happened, that's what people like to say. It wasn't their fault for having their own beliefs. The ones that stole their lives, they are the thieves. One day the killing will stop. One day we can live in a world where each religion is equally treated. One day the world won't be so heated. One day the hatred for Jews and Judaism will cease. One day the world will be at peace. One day we hope Jews won't be remembered as victims. One day we know that we'll be remembered as heroes. That day is today. Thank you very much.